Giannis makes his return, and the Bucks return to the win column. What we liked from Chicago and the climb the Bucks have in front of them, we dig into it next on Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. I am Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day each and every day. You can hear me each and every game on the Bucks radio network. You can hear and see Camille as part of our Locked On NBA coverage and the Technical Foul podcast as well. Today's episode of Locked On Bucks is brought to you by FanDuel. Before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Giannis made his return over the weekend, Camille, and we were talking before we started recording. We were talking earlier in the day as well. Saturdays, this whole week is blending together about when the possible return would be. I totally missed any of the chatter. I mean, with the post-game show going on, I don't hear any of the locker room stuff until well after the game, but you had pointed out, like, hey, is Giannis actually close? Because that's what it sounded like coming out of Memphis. I hadn't heard anything about that, and usually, not that I'm outright told Giannis is going to come back this day, but just what you're told and what you're not told, you can piece together, like, okay, I think it's probably going to be this date. I'd heard absolutely nothing. So I was like, I think it's probably going to be when they come home for the Wizards. So to wake up Saturday and then see that tweet and the report from Eric Name that, hey, barring any setbacks in pregame workout, he is going to return. The moment you saw him back on the floor after the first, two shots when he kind of found his rhythm, then it was just like, okay, this is exactly what this group had been missing. There were some numbers that are interesting I'll throw past you in a second, but just seeing the return of Giannis and what it meant for the offense, what were your big takeaways from that?
That he was sorely missed, and that a lot of the things that we saw while he was out, when he was off the court, you can still see the remnants of that of like, this team needs Giannis to really stir the drink here to make this go. So that was the first thing. And then just watching him and trying to see how everybody's going to get reacclimated to playing with Giannis after him not playing since December 3rd. I think that was the night of the injury there. So
yes,
it's been a few weeks now of this team trying to adjust. And I was like, what is the adjustment going to look like going back to playing with Giannis? We saw Ryan Rollins back in the starting lineup next to Kevin Porter Jr. with AJ Green and Giannis and Miles Turner. And initially it felt like the guys were really trying to make sure Giannis got the ball. And you could see after the first two turnovers, the first one I think was Kevin, and then the next one was Ryan, where it was like Giannis talking to him. And from my understanding, was kind of telling them like, y'all don't have to force me the ball. Like, let's just hoop. And I'll get the ball when it's supposed to come to me. And after that, they started figuring some things out. So again, not a perfect team at all. Chicago was really scrappy, and the Bucks weren't able to shoot well. So to see them get down to crunch time at the end of the game to put the ball in Giannis' hands, see Ryan Rollins make some big shots down the stretch, it was like, okay, we might have found something again. And then, of course, the ending that Giannis talked about was done to kind of get his teammates up and ready for what else is ahead of them. So we'll see. But first returns were good. Nice to see him dunking, knowing that he had the calf injury. So I was like, okay, is he fully all right coming back? Because we've heard him say before, like, hey, sometimes I get back too early because I just can't help myself. But he had like 4 dunks in a row. And that's when I was like, nope, Giannis looks like Giannis. But on that last dunk, the windmill that caused the ruckus, for a second, I was like, he kind of came down weird. And I was like, I hope he's all right.
It kind of like grabbed behind him too, where it seems like, and we at least hope this, he was just kind of catching his balance. But yes, I think we all had that same feeling of, no, he didn't like, tweak something on this dunk, did he? So in the most recent stretch of games that he had missed, the Bucks went 2-6, which quite frankly surprised me.
Like, was what, 1-7?
or 0-8 wouldn't have surprised me either, even though we know they beat the Indiana Pacers just a few days prior. But yeah, I mean, it didn't feel like we saw 2 wins, which is still not great. But they were 2-6 in those games. They're 3-11 overall in games that he has not played in this season. So they're 10-8 in games with him. They're starting to move closer into a better number there. But in those 8 games without him, which took up basically 3 weeks of the season, they ranked number 30 in offensive rating, 30th in offensive rating at 105.6. Not only were they 30th, Camille, they were 30th by a wide margin. The Raptors and Heat were the 2 teams in front of them. And, I mean, we'll throw the Pacers in there as well. All 3 of those teams, Raptors, Heat, and Pacers, were all basically 2 points per 100 possessions better than the Bucks during that stretch. Turnover rate for this team. We've talked a lot about where it's been in the month of December, and this basically makes up all of that. But where would you guess they ranked in turnover rate in those 8 games without him?
27th.
26, not bad. 17.4% turnover rate in those games. Yes. Very, very much not good for this group. And I believe they were in the middle of the pack in their 3-point efficiency during that stretch of games without Giannis. It's a team that has been very good at that throughout the course of the season. And, just the volume of them haven't been great, but they're knocking down their open looks when they get them. In this stretch, that was not the case. 16th that they ranked in 3-point percentage. So to me, that also kind of speaks to what are the quality of looks that they're getting with no Giannis on the floor to create some of that space. So that's what it was in those 8 games without him. I think if you want a better picture of what is it like with Giannis on the floor, we can certainly lean on cleaning the glass, but the sample size is about twice as much. If we just remove the middle portion of the slate and take out the first injury in that timeline, and then he played, I think, 3 games, and then the second injury occurred. So looking all the way up through that Cleveland game, since he played half of that game, the differences are pretty stark here, Camille. Offense still not great, but 16th overall versus 30th. You'll certainly take that. And turnover rate for this group in that stretch of games, all the way up until November 17th, I believe this was. Where would you guess they ranked in turnover rate?
I think they're probably like I'd say like 12th.
10th, yeah.
Yeah, it's like
a top 10 team at protecting the ball. So everything we've seen with the eye test for this group of like, hey, Giannis makes them a lot better, like no doubt, but the numbers have really backed it up here that it's just completely falling off a cliff in these games without him.
Yeah, truly falling off without him. And then, even after game, hearing Doc Rivers talk about like these might have been the most open looks that Miles and AJ have seen in some weeks now, and they kind of have to adjust to that.
At least 3 weeks, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and AJ is still working himself back from injury as well. And I just kept saying, just keep shooting. Keep shooting. I think Wes Matthews said during the broadcast, but he was like, shooters shoot to get hot, and you shoot to stay hot. Like you just have to continue to shoot. And even with Miles, just making sure that you're getting those looks and you're not turning them down, because even earlier in the season when playing with Giannis, there were times where he passed up shots because he was like, I feel like I'm shooting too much. So just getting everybody kind of back into the fold, and then just seeing how this lineup goes forward, because Doc mentioned a lot of how he likes the pairing of Kevin Porter Jr. and Ryan Rollins a lot more when they're accompanied by Giannis in the lineup, and really thinking about what that looks like and the rotations that come from that. Because my initial thoughts too was just kind of like, man, I hope now with the starting lineup that the rotations don't get really, really wonky from here on out. So just seeing how that continues to go forward. But like we've said all offseason, without Giannis, this team, any aspiration, it's not going to be there. Like, you have to have Giannis healthy. And now that he's back, the question becomes a question that we have asked multiple times over the last 2 months. And that is, can we start to stack wins at this point now? Can we finally stack some wins? Bucks.
We'll take a look at that and the schedule that's in front of the Bucks, plus a very, very interesting Eastern Conference that I think the way to describe it would be full of disappointments so far this season. So we'll get into those conversations coming up after this on Locked On Bucks. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel plans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. You open the FanDuel app during Happy Hour, and it always brings something new: boosts, bonuses, and surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. Timing is perfect right before the games and right before the weekend starts to add extra energy to your Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday night from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour, only on FanDuel, the official sports book partner of the NBA. And thank you for making Locked On Bucks your first listen of the day. Thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network the #1 sports podcast network in the industry. If you have not already, check out the new Everydayer Club. You get access to ad-free audio for Locked On Bucks, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app, and an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. You can find the URL to sign up for the Everydayer Club in the episode description of today's show. So we mentioned the good that we've seen with the return of Giannis. And one other thing to just point out here, Camille, in those games leading up to that first injury against Cleveland, 15 games, the Bucks were the #2 team in three-point efficiency at 41.5% and taking over 37 per game. In the stretch of play, those 8 games, most recently without him, they shot 35% and were taking just over 35 per game. So you're taking 2 fewer, and you're shooting basis points, percentage points, 6-7 percentage points worse on threes than you were with him. So that's certainly going to be a big impact. As we've said, if you're not going to have that 30 points out there, you're going to have to muck up the game. You're going to have to hit threes and to win with your defense. So it felt good to see him back out there. And even Giannis himself said after the game, I think he mentioned Ryan and Scoot, that he talked to both of those guys and just said, no, like, just play, like, do what you were doing before. Don't look to get me involved. Let it come naturally. Just go out there and play, and we'll figure it out.
Truly, truly. And one thing I've been irritated with throughout the season is like this subset of fans that seem to want to pit Ryan Rollins against Kevin Porter Jr., as if the Bucks don't need both of them to be very good in order to have success. Like, both of these players are needed on this particular team. And I thought you saw the fruit of that in various ways against the Bulls. Like, Kevin Porter Jr. didn't light up like the scoreboard and actually putting the points on the board, but man, was he active in those passing lanes, creating those turnovers, getting the team extra chances to try to put the ball in the hoop. Did a pretty decent job too of getting others involved. 9 assists, did have 4 turnovers. Still 1-2 more than you would like to see from him on a regular basis, but getting others involved, rebounding, crashing the glass, steals, trying to get to the free throw line, those things. He only got there twice, but for a Bucks team where Giannis finished the game 8 of 10 from the free throw line, and Giannis didn't even have his first free throw attempt until the third quarter. Like, it was other guys that were still putting the pressure on the rim, getting to it. Even Kyle Kuzma. I've really enjoyed the way that Kyle Kuzma has been playing outside of I think it was end of the first or the second quarter. He took that deep 3.
Yes.
And it was like,
I think he was just confused over where the clock was.
Yeah, I was like a couple seconds too early if that's what you were going to do. But outside of that, the way that he puts pressure on the rim, how he's been driving, playing with size, physicality, like, they're going to continue to need that from him. So just seeing how other guys are trying to fit into and things that they've been doing while Giannis was out, like Kuz with the aggressiveness, Kevin trying to play those passing lanes and all of those other things. And it was really cool just to see Ryan Rollins too just have a game where the ball was going in the hoop for him consistently, where he was being aggressive himself, Like all of these guys, even with Giannis back, have to remain aggressive and finding their shots along the way too, because it's going to make it easier for everyone else on the court, Giannis included.
Yeah, so let's stick with Ryan Rollins for a minute. We've talked quite a bit about the importance of Ryan Rollins playing heavy minutes. How many he's appeared in every single game for the Bucks this season. And by the way, there was a brief scare where Doc said after the game, I don't think we heard from Ryan, but Doc said that he knocked knees and that was the pain he was feeling. But that was that late in the second quarter? It lingered for a couple of possessions. Yeah. And you could see Ryan laboring and limping down the floor and bending over and trying to just get the knee back to where it needed to be, basically, on the offensive possession, and limping down the court defensively. That I think we all kind of rushed to judgment and assumed the worst, given the way everything has gone so far this season. I didn't really love the answer we got from Doc, Camille, if I'm being honest. In that, it scared. I forget how he phrased it, but basically, it scared the crap out of me. But Ryan said that he just knocked knees. I mean, if it did scare you like that, call a timeout. Tell your team to commit a foul and get him out of the game.
That's what confused me, because he was clearly laboring and not able.
And it wasn't just that trip back down the floor. It was a couple of possessions.
And I was like, why has no one fouled? Why is he still out there? And it looked like when they finally did get the substitution, he was trying to wave him off like, all right, I'm good now. But they were like, no, come sit down. Let's make sure.
Thanks now.
Right, now. But luckily, he seems like he's all right. After the game, I think Ryan just said, just knock knees. I'm good. I'm cool. I'm straight. Which I laughed at the broadcast booth because Wes Matthews was on the commentary with Lisa Bynington, and he mentioned he still got those 23-year-old knees. He's all right. If I hit knees like that, I'd still be down the ground at 33. It's not the same. So hopefully he is all right. Seemed like he was, but that was a moment where I was confused as well. Why is he still out here? But then he started the third quarter too, and I was like, okay, seems like
my fear is, oh boy, we're gonna get a note pretty soon here from Bucks Media Relations that Ryan Rollins has been ruled out for the remainder of the game. So when we saw him back out there to start the third, then you were like, okay, we dodged a bullet here. But as I said before, he's played in all 32 games so far this season. How many of those would you guess, keeping this on the lines of the importance of his playing time, how many of those 32 would you guess he's played 30 or more minutes?
Ooh, of 32. I'd say because we had the Giannis injury stretch, the Kevin Porter Jr. injury stretch, 18?
Wow, Camille, did you cheat?
I did not. I swear I didn't. I don't even know how to even look that up that quickly.
It is 18 that he's played in 30 or more minutes. And it's funny that when you were kind of talking yourself through it and you're like, well, there was this injury and there was this injury, in the sense of, I'm assuming this should have added to his minutes played. Yeah. We're beyond that, Camille. Are we not? This guy is clearly, I wouldn't even say one of your five. He is clearly one of the three best players on this roster right now. And that we have to have this conversation of, what would probably be helpful is just committing to, I don't care who's out. I don't care about breaking up, as we've talked through how ridiculous that notion is of, we got to break him up to stagger some of these minutes. Fine, if that's what you insist on doing, but the non-negotiable is he needs to play at bare minimum 30 minutes per game the rest of the way. 18 out of 32 times is a big problem with some of the success that we've seen from this team. And I was hoping these splits would be even more dramatic to really provide the exclamation point to this. But still, what would you guess their record is in those 18 games?
Ooh. Well, I think they've won that many games so far this season. Let's go. 13. Let's go 18 games. I'm gonna say 8 and 10.
Camille, I mean, you're not going to convince me you're not cheating.
How am I going to look this up? I can explain my thought pattern behind it and all the stuff, because initially with the minutes, it was okay, there was a stretch early where he was playing, but he wasn't getting the time. It felt like when Giannis got hurt is when he really kind of got those minutes up the first time, and ran from there. So I was okay. But then we know recently there have been the games where he hasn't played enough. So I was like, it has to
Mhm.
be somewhere kind of in the middle. And then guessing the record, I mean, the team is only
Not
won
good.
13 games.
Right. I mean,
So
they're not good. It would have been great if we could have said they're 13-5 in games
yeah,
where
I
he
figured
plays
it'd be a
30.
losing record, but close
Yeah.
to 500.
I mean, either way, 8-10 is at least like, hey, you know what? If we're playing at that rate right now in the Eastern Conference, we feel pretty good about where we are. When we joke about being a couple of games away from being a couple of games away, you're just a couple of games away if that's the pace that you're playing at. But I'll take a 45% winning percentage over 35, which is the 5-9 record when he doesn't. So I think when we all saw the starting lineup against the Bulls and saw, okay, this is without question, and we can debate, Bobby, who's been playing much better, especially on the offensive end, but we can debate the impact there. I think that is without question your best five on this roster, and it's certainly your best five-man grouping. So to see that, great. Let's continue to see this. No more tinkering, provided you stay healthy, and commit to playing these five guys heavy minutes.
Yeah, and then figure out what the rest of the rotation looks like. Because to your point about how Bobby has been playing, understanding like, okay, when Bobby's on the court, here's what we need. Because like the joke was made in post game with Bobby of like, Scoot and Ryan were really trying to find Giannis. How do you adjust to that, Bobby? And Bobby kind of laughed like, I'm always looking for my shot. Like, if anything, you got to tell me to pass more often. Like, you don't have to tell me to be aggressive and go and find my shot. And for this Bucks team now, especially with Gary Harris is playing, Gary Trent Jr. right now out. Like, they need that aggressiveness from him even more, because if your bench unit with this starting five is Bobby Portis, Kyle Kuzma, Jericho Sims, and Gary Harris, there's going to be a lot offensively on Bobby Portis's plate if you're going with more bench heavy lineups as it is. So yeah, the roles are seeming like they're becoming a little bit more defined for guys going forward now. And Bobby finding the offensive part of his game is very, very important, because if Bobby can't give you that with what he does give you defensively, you don't want to play Bobby as often. So he has to continue playing offensively the way he has been.
All right, we mentioned disappointing way to sum up the Eastern Conference. We'll get into the latest there, some injury updates across the conference, and this picture that the Bucks have in front of them with this upcoming schedule, and why this upcoming 4-game road trip, maybe it's not quite as bad as you envisioned at the time either. So we'll dig into all of that coming up after the break here on Locked On Bucks. So if my math is accurate here, Camille, the Bucks are in this stretch where they're playing 11 of 13 games on the road. The schedule that they have in front of them now, you're currently 13-19, but the good news is the Atlanta Hawks have been sinking like a stone recently, and it, not to pick on him, but it coincidentally coincides with the return of Trae Young. I don't think they've won since he's returned, or there's something like 1-5 or 1-6 if they have.
They've lost 6 straight games.
Okay, so yes, winless since that return. They're 15-18. So again, I'll get up on my box here and say there's a couple of things I wish everybody, if you leave with only a couple of things, leave with this. Plus minus, not important. It doesn't tell the whole story, especially when you're looking at it on a game-by-game basis. So let's stop referencing, but he was plus 17. Rebounding numbers, let's look at the rebounding rates and percentages versus the raw rebounding numbers. And when referencing the standings, I don't care how many games back you are. I care the loss column. That's there. You can do nothing to change the losses. You can add to your wins, but your losses are stuck there. So always cite the losses. The Bucks are just one back of Atlanta now for the final spot in the play-in tournament at 19 losses for the Bucks, 18 for the Hawks. But again, you're still in this spot. You're a couple of games away from being in that mix, to be a couple of games away, because all of the play-in tournament teams at this moment have Miami's 15, but 16 for the Bulls, 16 for the Cavs. So you're a couple of games away from joining that party, and when that happens, it's not much that's separating the rest of the group. The 4th-seeded Magic have 14 losses. The 5th-seeded Raptors have 14 losses. Philly has 13 losses, and they're currently 6. So the play-in tournament teams are basically 2 games away from being a home court advantage team in this Eastern Conference. So that's why we keep saying hey, Bucks are a couple of games away from being a couple of games away here. But these next, 3 games that you have, I don't want to get hyperbolic and say this is going to determine your season, but I think this keeps one door open for the Bucks. If you win these 3 games, which is asking a lot for a team that's gone 2 months without winning consecutive games, and now we're asking you to do it 3 times in a row. But if you can do that, we both said, hey, can you get somewhere like where Indiana was after the Bucks beat them on New Year's Eve last year? And I believe at that point, Indiana was 16-18. You can get to 16-19. If you hadn't have let a couple of those get away, you could have been 17-18 if you win these next 3 games. And that's exactly where you need to be. But there's added importance too, Camille, in that the Washington Wizards no longer have the worst record in the conference. And the Charlotte Hornets, for all the discourse we just had about keep an eye on the losses, Charlotte's just 1 back of you.
Yeah.
So if things don't go your way, we're not talking about, can you get to Atlanta? Can you get to Chicago? Can you get to in that mix and just a couple of games off of a 5 seed, a 6 seed? We're all of a sudden talking about, wow, Charlotte passed the Bucks. Brooklyn is tied with you in the loss column and have won 3 straight and 7 of their last 10, beating good teams in that stretch too, where we're potentially looking at it, if you don't take care of business and say, man, the Hornets have passed the Bucks. The Nets are right there with them. Like, this is a team that could be 3rd worst in the conference by the time this road trip ends.
Yeah, and that's part of the frustration that the last couple of weeks have been, because we took a look at this December schedule and was kind of like, hey, Bucks can make up some ground. Like, you were able to beat the Celtics.
Provided we didn't assume Giannis was going to go down 3 days in, and then
after that, like the Celtics game when they won that, and it was like, okay, like now you have the Nets, and then the Nets beat the Bucks, and then you lose to the Raptors, then you lose to the Wolves, and then you bounce back and you beat the Pacers, then you get blown out by the Grizzlies, and then you beat the Bulls now. So it's like there have been opportunities to already have made yourself a couple games closer to being a couple of games away, and they're still at that distance. Again, the silver lining is that other teams in the East have been losing as well. So the separation isn't quite as great as it could be. So you're still like fighting for your playoff life. There's still some time in that aspect, but we're a third of the way through the season. So a lot of what we've seen, one could argue, like, is this the makeup of your team? The Bucks can argue, like, no, we haven't been healthy. We still have different levels to hit. And I hope that is the case, because you mentioned the next 3 games for the Bucks, and really I feel like the next 4 games for them are really winnable. Like, they have the Hornets Monday, they have the Wizards Wednesday for New Year's Eve. Then you have the Hornets again on the 2nd. Then you have the Kings in Sacramento, which we know in Sacramento tends to be a little bit difficult for the Bucks, and that kicks off a little road trip for them on the West Coast. But like, you got to get your lick back on Sacramento, who has just been spiraling in so many different ways. Like, there's a chance here, like, if the Bucks can play some solid basketball that we have not seen them do in 2 months' time, to be able to really stack not just this Bulls game, but the Hornets, the Wizards, the Hornets again, and then the Kings before you see the Warriors, the Lakers, and the Nuggets. And the Warriors have been about a 500 team, still figuring things out, but you got to deal with Steph Curry always. And the Lakers dealing with some things right now too. So you might be able to catch them at a pretty good time. So there's opportunity for the Bucks, as there has been the entire season. The problem has just been that they have been able to capitalize on it and execute and play to a consistent standard. So it's like, we're getting ready to hit 2026. Can you finally start to hit that? Can you finally start win streaks instead of just these losing ones and winning one off and then resetting the clock again?
So the trip, and when I said you could potentially be 3rd worst in the conference at the end of the trip, I mean this next upcoming one, when we said 9 of 11 being played on the road for the Bucks. But yeah, it's really Denver is playing well yet, but Denver again, all these teams on the road trip, like, now that Giannis has returned, and he himself said after the game in Chicago, he would anticipate, I think he said 5 to 10 games that he would anticipate the minutes restriction for him. But we saw how much of an impact that makes to have him on the court for 25 minutes versus not having him at all. All of these teams, Camille, right? We mentioned the next three, and then that road trip. Sacramento is not good. Full stop there. Golden State, as you noted, they've basically been a 500 team so far this season. The Lakers, by the numbers, by every single metric, are not a good team. They still have a negative point differential, but have won 19 of their 29 games somehow. Now they just lost Austin Reeves for a month. He's not going to be playing in this game. I believe Gabe Vincent is still out for this group as well. So injuries are starting to pile up for that Lakers team. The best team of the mix that you have on this road trip is the Denver Nuggets, who are 22-9, but now Denver just lost Cam Johnson. They still have Aaron Gordon that's out. They still have Christian Brown that's out. So they're starting to pick up some injuries. It's very tough on paper. And again, it's a team that hasn't won back-to-back games in 2 months. We recognize that. But this entire stretch, the 3 games in front of you, the next 4 on that road trip, those 7 games, the goal needs to be 5-2 in those 7 games. And I mean, if you do that, it's still not great. You're 18-21 then. If you do even better than that, if you can win 6 of these next 7 games, then we're talking. If you're 19-20, like, okay, this is exactly where this team needed to get to. Because at this point, 19-20, with how disappointing the Eastern Conference has been, that might be 8th in the conference by the time those 7 games finish. But, with these next 4 opponents, and then with some of the issues the others are going through, there is an opportunity for you to do that. But we just need to see more of the good versus what we've largely seen for bigger chunks of this season.
Yeah. Give me something to believe in, Bucks. Like that's where I'm at. Like, just put it on the tape, put it on the film so we can see it. Like the numbers here based on the standings, looking at the standings, those numbers show like there is still life. There is still opportunity. There is still a chance. Seeing Giannis, like that alone gives me, I won't speak for you, but Giannis on the court, I'm like, hey, I understand what the ceiling can be for a team with Giannis. I should say the floor of a team with Giannis on the court can be. But now it's like, show it.
You know what the floor of a team without him can be too.
Yeah, the worst in the East dang near. So like we got to start to see it. And that's once we start to stack the games and then the confidence can start coming back from the outside looking in. Does not seem like the locker room has lost any confidence. They just need to kind of have the intensity right where they need to be. So hopefully they're there, and maybe the windmill dunk to end the game does help to spark the team to understand that they got to be on like some Black Air Force energy for the rest of the season, because there's nothing left to be cool for. Like, you got to continue to fight at this point, because there's a hole that you have dug yourself into that's not going to be easy to climb out of if you continue playing the way you have throughout this season.
And by the way, as we're recording this Sunday afternoon in advance, not really a great slate of games today. The Raptors are playing. They're hosting the Warriors. I believe RJ Barrett is back in this game. If not, he's very close, and he did return. So RJ Barrett is finally back after more than a month out with that injury. The Sixers are playing the Thunder. I mean, those are the 2 notable games for the Bucks to keep an eye on, because, hey, if these 2 teams can lose, then it's just 2 more teams to add into that 14-15 loss range, where you just look back at it. And again, it's 5 games right now for the Bucks, and this happens every year, right? We talked about it last year with the start to the season, and man, if you would have just gone 6-4 instead of 2-8, you're the 3 seed. Same thing we're doing now, right? I think there's 5 games you can clearly point to so far that they've played in and say, these were games you just kind of gave away. You controlled the game against the Rockets for 3/4 of that game and lost. That 76ers game that went to overtime, when we heard about the execution down the stretch, you lost that one. The way you played against Miami, good enough to win, but just couldn't pull that one out. And then the other ones that we see, Minnesota on this road trip, you had a very strong chance in that they were sleepwalking through the first 2.5 quarters of that game and just couldn't pull it out. And one of the more frustrating ones, that Wizards loss on the road to start the month. Those 5 games, I mean, I don't want to get too greedy here, Camille, but even if 3 of those go differently, you're 16-17 right now.
Yeah.
And at that point, you're right there with Cleveland and Miami near the top of the play-in tournament and out of it. So
Yeah.
all these games, they count the same in the standings. It doesn't matter where they're played in the course of the calendar of like, oh, this one's more important. Like, no, they all count the same. And we're kind of feeling the effects of it right now for this team.
Yeah, you can even throw, like I said, the Kings game. Throw that one in there too. Of like a game
absolutely.
that you should have had to.
Yes.
So yeah, it's now I'm so tired of us having to have these conversations. We even had them last year, as you mentioned, of like, hey, if you could have just taken care of the bit. Like, I want to start having the conversations of like, hey, the Bucks have that.
Here they are. They're the stealth team that's kind of under the radar now.
Let's start to build that so that when we get to March to April, it's a trendy pick of like, hey, the Bucks might not be the team you actually want to see in the playoffs, but like again, they have to show it to us.
I mean, maybe not to that level, and granted, they reached the finals, but like where Indiana was, where it took a while, that it was like the first week of March before everybody outside of Indiana and everybody that's following the league closely daily was like, you know what the Pacers' record is since January 1st? Like, that's the goal for this team. Hey, you know what the Bucks have done since the last week of December? Should be the goal here for this team. So you got the first of those 4 games we highlighted coming up later tonight when the Bucks are in Charlotte to wrap up the road trip against the Hornets. No word yet on Camille, who left their most recent game with an ankle issue. Tests were negative, which is a positive. I would assume he'll play, but maybe you catch a break and you don't face him. So first of 2 straight or 2 this week against the Hornets that we'll have the recap for you coming up on tomorrow's show. Thanks as always for tuning in today to Locked On Bucks. Make sure you subscribe and follow the podcast so you get all of these episodes at the very latest episodes the moment that they drop. If you need any additional gift ideas, I know we're past the holiday portion of the calendar. Maybe you forgot to get something for someone or just didn't have time to exchange gifts with them, or somebody mentioned they didn't like what you got them and you needed a replacement. You can make them a part of the Everydayer Club. You get ad-free episodes of this show, exclusive Discord server access, and more. You can even gift subscriptions. You can find the link to sign up for the Everydayer Club in the episode description of today's podcast. For those of you on video, we send you now to the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make that your second listen with NBA Game Night on Locked On NBA. For Camille, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.